Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It is Brett. We are down here in the Shooter Shack. The Monday Nighter just finished, and guess what? We finished the week at 4-1. And I know to a lot of you, you're probably thinking, that's incredible, but to me, it's not a goddamn big deal. I've been picking winners for quite some time. I've been picking at 72%. I've been picking winners since week 1. I've been picking winners since 2007. Nothing changes on this end. If you haven't jumped on board with it, if you didn't teabag your bookie last week, I'm going to give you an opportunity later in this week to make that happen. If you haven't done it yet, please, I want you to follow the plays, follow the picks, make yourself some money, and if you got a couple of these at home, you take these things and you throw them right on your bookie's chin, because we're coming after them. We're going to go through each game that I picked from last week, break it down, and we're going to start off in Chicago. The Jacksonville Jaguars now at 2-3 against the Chicago Bears, who are 1-5. Huge win for the Jaguars at 17-16. I told you last week, I think the Jags take it on the road coming after the big win 2 weeks ago in London. I told you to take them on the spread at +3. So that covered for you. Now, it was a sloppy game, a tough one to watch in Soldier Field. Blake Bortles came to life finally in the fourth quarter to get the Jags the victory. He goes 20 for 33 with 271 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, the journeyman Brian Hoyer, we touched on him last week. He had some okay numbers, so-so, come see, come saw, but the result was the same. It's another loss for Brian. Mr. Bickhead's got to change things up. Even though he goes 30 for 49 with 302 yards, guess what? No touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, nothing to shake a stick at. Bears receiver, however, Cameron Meredith, had a breakout game with 11 receptions for 113 yards. I told you guys the Jags take him on the win, but you take him on the spread. I hope you did that. Now Jacksonville all of a sudden puts themselves right back in the race, turns the season around, gives himself a chance going into week 7. I locked it in, and I made myself a few bucks. It was the one I wanted, it was the one you needed, and it's the one we got. Jacksonville takes it 17-16. The next game we're going to talk about is the New England Patriots, now at 5-1, against the depleted Cincinnati Bengals, dropping back to 2-4. It was a 35-17 win for the New England Patriots. And once again, I don't want to be the guy to say I told you so. I'm really not that guy, but I told you so. I told you the Pats were coming out hot. I told you the Bengals were coming off a tough loss. I told you to take them on the money line. I told you to put your chips in the middle. Go back and watch the video. I said push them in. I told you to put some cream cheese on the bagel. I hope you did it. Because if you did, you're like me and you made a few bucks on the game. Once again, Tommy Gun Tom Brady was an absolute superhuman monster, going 29 for 35 for 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. With his favorite big target, Mr. Gronk, was probably the second best player on the field, getting 7 receptions for a massive 162 yards alongside with a touchdown. Now, the big red machine, Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket. He was not the Red Rocket we used to know. He went 21 for 31 with 251 yards. The only thing on fire in this game was his hair. I'm telling you, he's got to do something about it. Hit the hair salon, maybe change it up, maybe go blonde, because the redhead thing, it's not doing it for me. I gave you them on the money line. I gave it to you as a suicide pick. Hopefully you put a little extra cream cheese on the bagel and choke back a couple bucks. Patriots take this one 35-17. The next one we're going to touch base on is a classic AFC South matchup between the Houston Texans at 4-2 against the Indianapolis Colts at 2-4. Now, I talked about this last week. I said the game looked like a little bit of a yawner, a little bit of a snoozer, but this may have been, and in my opinion it was, the best football game the entire Sunday. Now, I told you last week I like the Colts to come out and win this game outright. However, I told you to take them on the 4-point spread. You lock it in, you grab a loan. You know what I told you. So basically, it looked like the Colts had this thing in the bag. There was 4 minutes left. Indianapolis is up by 14. Now, Big Brock finally earned that big money that he signed in the offseason, acquired from the Denver Broncos, a Super Bowl champion, and he led his team back, all the way back, with 3.5 minutes left to score 2 touchdowns. Now, Big Brock goes 25 for 39 for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Lamar Miller on the Texans, he was the one they wanted with the pigskin in this game, getting 24 touches for 149 yards and the tying touchdown with less than 2 minutes to go. On the other end of the spectrum, we had Andrew Luck that went 21 for 32 with 252 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. I love the Colts all week here at +4, but when the Texans tied the game up late, I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little bit worried. This game goes into overtime. And guess what happens? Texans win on a field goal. Indianapolis Colts, we cover the spread. Chalk another one up on the board. If you took a loan out from the bank, take it back. Take the profit out. Buy yourself a nice little getaway spot for the wife and the kids. Put it in the bank. Texans win this one in overtime, 26-23. Another one. Alright guys, we're going to talk about this one. And I'm telling you, I'm kind of full of the humble pie. It's in the barrel. It's sitting there. It's rolling around. This was a tough one for me on Sunday, watching this NFC South matchup between the Carolina Panthers at 1-5 against the New Orleans Saints at 2-3. This was a game that I told you last week, it was as close to do or die for the Carolina Panthers as you could possibly imagine. And guess what? The boys were singing their own eulogy on Sunday because they pretty much just threw their season right in the coffin. Superman, he looked more like Super Bitch, and we saw that in his post-game interview. Cam went just 27 for 47, 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Now, I predicted last week that veteran running back Jonathan Stewart would make a big return off the injured reserve, and that he did. He snagged himself 19 carries for 85 yards and a pair of TDs. Not too bad, Johnny boy. And however, now, they were outdone by their rival, divisional rival Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. Breezy was an absolute beast out there, throwing for a jaw-dropping 465 yards, completing for 34 of 49 passes, and the victory. Now, one of his favorite options, Brandon Cooks, was a tough guy to stop. Cooksy had himself 7 receptions for 173 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, if last week you had seen me sitting right in this same spot down here in the shooter shack, I had a Carolina Panthers jersey on and a Carolina Panthers hat. And I told you to put everything you had, throw it into a stew, and mix it around. If you got any of that stew left in the fridge, throw it out because it's done, it's rotten. Just like the Carolina Panthers season, they are absolutely finished. Now, I pick at 72 to 73% after this week's numbers. I can't win every single game. 4-1 is solid to the average guy. To me, it's another day at the office. But if I lost your money on that game, stick with me. I promise you, I'm going to make it back. Put your chips in the pot. Give me an opportunity to make it back for you next week. Final score, New Orleans 41, Carolina Panthers 38. Alright guys, this is the final game that we're going to talk about. And if you look at my shirt and my hat, you got a pretty good idea what it's all about. Now this was the Monday night game that was going to be the final piece of the puzzle. The last gear you're going to shift into week 6. We have the Arizona Cardinals now at 3-3 facing off against the 1-5 New York Jets. I told you early in the week there's nothing better than pulling out the tea bags and dropping one on your bookie's chin. So what did I tell you? I told you take the Cards at the -7. It's money in the bank. Like, have you not been following? Have you not been watching? I'm picking at 73%. This week it's 80. I go 4-1. Carson Palmer comes back off an injury on national television when all the other players in the league are watching. This guy gets it done. He goes 23 for 34, 214 yards, 1 touchdown with not a single interception. You want to talk about interceptions? Look at his counterpart, the guy with the big beard, Ryan Fitzpatrick. This guy cannot keep the ball in his own team's hands. You wonder why Eric Decker is probably faking a shoulder injury. You wonder why Brandon Marshall's fighting the truth. This guy cannot stop turning over the ball. And tonight, he did it again. Another one. That's number 11 on the season, an NFL high. He only goes 16 for 31 with not a single touchdown, not a sniff. Not one other guy in the Jets is even worth talking about because the stats are disgusting. And I'll tell you right now, down here, I told you last week, put it in a stir fry, mix it up, get your wife something to eat. I told you the toaster in Arizona would be live, the Red Sea would rise up, and they would cover the 7-point spread. And they covered the 7-point spread for fun. Walk in the park with a couple dogs. 28-3 for the Arizona Cardinals. That's another one. You can chalk it up and lock it in the bank. That closes the week. So I finished this one at 4-1, 80%. Not a big deal. That's what I do. 2 weeks ago, I give you 16 picks. I pick at 71%. Last week, I give you 5. I pick at 80%. Next week, we're changing this whole thing up. The newest segment is going to be called the Shooter 6, and I'm going to give you 6 opportunities to make yourself a couple bucks. You got some debt lingering? You got some student loans? You're 43, still trying to pay them off? Jump on the Shooter's back. Let's get this thing done together. Take a look into my eyes. They're green, just like money. And if you follow my picks, you're going to make a little bit of money too. So that's how we're going to close it off. I want to thank Captured Films for doing this tonight. If you take a good look, I got my tea bags ready. I got my Shooter 6 picks coming at you later this week. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you soon. And don't forget, teabag your bookie.